The earthquakes in Turkey hit the country in the worst possible moment one could imagine. The magnitude 7.8 and 7.5 quakes destroyed thousands of buildings, homes, power lines, roads and infrastructure, and the deaths could be up in the tens of thousands. This is the worst catastrophe happening to Turkey in almost 100 years. But in 3 months there will be general elections in the country. Even without the emergency, the situation would have been intense. Record high inflation of 60% is taking its toll on the people of Turkey. The struggle between the AKP and the opposition is heating up. Talks about military intervention in Syria is on the table again. And the fight against the Kurdish insurgency in the east is more than complicated. At the same time, Turkey has an open dispute with NATO members and is under heavy pressure in the alliance. And now, the country stands between the West and Russia in the Ukraine war, struggling to stay neutral. And all of this so close to the 100-year anniversary of the creation of the Republic. This should be Recep Tayyip Erdogan's big day. But now, this will be the hardest 3 months of his political life. And Turkey, a NATO country, is facing its biggest crisis. And in this case, nothing is off the table. Everything could happen. Let's talk about what that could be. Welcome to Dark New World. The earthquakes couldn't have hit Turkey in a worse moment than they did, killing tens of thousands of people. Cities, communities, lives reduced to rubble. The economic damage is estimated to be in the billions. Some of the largest cities of the country destroyed. On top of the record-breaking inflation, the economy crisis, there is now a human catastrophe of epic proportions. Let's talk about the direct impacts of the catastrophe before we talk about the political fallout and the heated showdown that is on the horizon for Turkey. The death toll has been staggering and surpassed 20,000 people at the time of writing this script. A figure that is almost certain to continue to rise amid search and rescue efforts. The World Health Organization has warned that more than 23 million people could be affected by the disaster. And again, the economic damage will be in the billions. In the affected region, there are several cities with over 1 million inhabitants. Not only apartments, but factories and other industrial infrastructure is damaged. This comes at a time in which Turkey is in the grip of an economic crisis. The amount of funding needed to restore the status quo will be astronomical. But the biggest problem is the scale of the damage. It will take a lot of time to repair and rebuild the whole southeast of the country. And time is something that Turkey doesn't have. Right now, more than 100,000 people need immediate shelter. The buildings that didn't collapse are either in unlivable condition or, and that's even worse, the structural integrity is in danger and the buildings could collapse. We are in the middle of winter and weather can be harsh in this part of the country. Mountainous terrain makes it a difficult task to reach villages and smaller cities. For many in the region, collapse is nothing new. Millions of Syrian refugees are living in camps in the area. And now they are in danger again. So, what will happen now? The government declared a level 4 alarm, calling for international assistance and a 3-month state of emergency in the most affected provinces. Authorities say more than 12,000 search and rescue personnel and another 9,000 troops are in action. Under a state of emergency declared due to a disaster, the government can request that public and private institutions or individuals give up land, buildings, vehicles, food, medicine and more. But what does this all have to do with the upcoming elections? Well, here it gets complicated. 3 months from now, there will be presidential elections in Turkey. It is also, at the same time, the 100-year birthday of the Turkish Republic. A very special year, and a very special election. Inflation is sky high, and ordinary Turks have a hard time economically. And then there is the AKP, under the lead of President Erdogan, who is consolidating power and silencing opposition. But now, the earthquakes changed everything. And I really mean everything. In my 2023 prediction video, I already spoke about Turkey, and how probably many headlines in the news will come from the country in the first half of the year. The election would have been very hectic, dangerous and heated, even without the catastrophe. But now, the first half of the year turns out to be a massive showdown for the country. Everything is at stake. And every player, AKP or opposition, will go all in. For Erdogan and the AKP, it is paramount that the emergency response will go smoothly for the people. At the same time, he don't want to use the military. That is because of the history and position of the military in Turkey. In the past 100 years, the country saw many coup attempts, and it was always the military that overthrew the government in the end. So in his eyes, it is important to separate himself and his efforts from everything the military apparatus does. In our case, it is important that civilian organizations are spearheading the relief efforts, so the AKP can prove that their policies worked and that the government is capable of carrying out relief efforts. But the scale of this disaster is gigantic. This is a once-in-a-lifetime earthquake, and it hit a very vulnerable region. The world is rushing to Turkey to help, but sadly the death count will be in the tens of thousands. And people that already struggled economically will now aim their anger towards the government. This is a recipe for disaster. I know the elections would be heated and something would happen. Even terrorist attacks to feed the flames would not be unrealistic. But the situation could spiral out of control now completely. The next 3 to 6 months will be the most dangerous time in the history of this nation. And all that exactly 100 years after its birth. Like back then, everything is at stake here. And because of that, I expect that this year political campaigns will be utterly chaotic, aggressive and heated. But we will find that out soon, and the Turks have to decide. But let's talk about some dramatic possibilities that aren't unrealistic anymore. Days after the disaster, people began criticizing the rescue operations, especially people in smaller towns and villages that couldn't get reached by the rescuers, due to the sheer size of the region and overwhelmingly numerous places that needed help. As I said before, Erdogan did not mobilize the entire military to help, only parts. At least that's what is said. The situation is chaotic. If anyone is from Turkey, please correct me, and I will pin the comment. Now, people seem to criticize that decision, and with that, the AKP. In response, the government shut down access to Twitter, where people share their opinion. Unfortunately, people also organize over Twitter, and many people are sending calls for help via the platform. So a negative backlash is almost certain. In any case, I expect demonstrations, and maybe the possibility for conflict. Other groups like the Kurdish PKK will use the chaos and increase military activity. Terror attacks seem to be likely, and the government will probably answer drastically. Military activity will also increase in Syria and northern Iraq, where the Turkish Air Force and special forces are fighting the insurgency. But there is still also the possibility that the country stays united. Turkey, above all nations in the region, showed time and time again to be able to unify in times of crises. Like 2016, when the military coup attempt failed. People stormed the streets and put an end to it quickly. And especially after natural disasters, the people of Turkey are united. Maybe this time it won't be different. But in the case that political chaos breaks out and the vote predictions for the AKP get worse, the government could use the 3-month emergency state to push the elections further into the summer. This would give the government time to bring back order and to improve approval rates. But there won't be too much time to delay the elections, because on October 29th, the anniversary will demand a functioning government. So there is not much time for Turkey to overcome this crisis. This is a critical time for the Republic of Turkey. Expect many headlines from Turkey in the first half of the year. And I didn't even mention the geopolitical situation, the war in Ukraine, the dispute over Sweden's NATO membership and many other things. And I will report again on the situation when the election comes closer. For now, we can only hope that the death count will not rise, and many people get saved from the rubble. If you want to know more about food shortages, then this video is for you. Or you check out this video about misinformation and the fog of war in Ukraine. If you want to support me, then like this video and subscribe. My name is Dennis. Thank you for watching and goodbye.